Well, it's spring, at least for those of us in the northern hemisphere, and the flowers are in bloom, especially, of course, the flower that nobody seems to want, the dandelion. To many of us, it's the definition of a weed. We mow the things over, they come back. We spend millions of dollars on weed killer. We just can't get rid of them. Making up the genus Taraxacum in the sunflower family, they are among the most populous and widespread plants on Earth, especially the thing that we call the common dandelion, which is found commonly on 6 continents, everything but Antarctica, and in all 50 US states. But aside from trying to eradicate the things, we don't put a lot of thought into dandelions and exactly how it came that they would populate the entire Earth. The history of the common dandelion and its inextricable connection to human civilization is history that deserves to be remembered. As a species, dandelions are believed to have evolved about 30 million years ago in Eurasia, spread widely during interglacial periods when receding glaciers left wet, disturbed land in their wake. Dandelions thrive especially in disturbed habitats where they easily colonize the cleared space with limited competition. Before humans started farming, dandelions and plants like it were easily foraged and provided necessary nutrients. All parts of the plant are edible. The leaves have been traditionally eaten raw or boiled and are used to make dandelion teas. The flowers themselves have been described as sweet, although the plants become more bitter as it grows older, and thus the best tasting dandelions are picked in spring. The roots, which are often thick and go deep into the ground, can be peeled and eaten like other roots, such as carrots, or ground and made into a kind of coffee. The relationship between humans and dandelions goes deep into prehistory. The taxonomy of the dandelion is rather complex, but the species that most people would recognize across the world is Taraxacum officinale. While it isn't clear exactly when humans began eating them, dandelions were a well-established part of diets all over the ancient world. They were eaten by the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the Egyptians. The Greeks still eat them today in a dish that's called radicchia. It is even mentioned in Greek myth. John Evelyn published the Eschateria, a discourse on salads, in 1699, and in it he says of dandelions, "It was from this homely salad that the good wife Hecate fed Theseus, the slayer of the Minotaur." The legend says that the goddess Hecate fed the hero Theseus dandelions for 30 days in order to give him the strength to defeat the bull-headed beast. Anyone who's ever tried to keep a weed-free lawn knows that dandelions grow and reproduce very quickly. This is partly because dandelions do not need to be pollinated in order to reproduce. Instead, they reproduce asexually, and each seed is a clone of the parent. Dandelions produce between 54 and 172 seeds per head, and a single plant can produce more than 5,000 seeds in a year. Additionally, a dandelion plant can live up to 13 years, and it will regrow if any part of the taproot survives. This helps to explain 2 historical facts about the dandelion. Their abundance and hardiness made them especially valuable as forage, because they would grow in large numbers without cultivation. Second, these plants would traditionally follow human settlement because human camps, and later human cities, created large amounts of disturbed ground as land was broken for farming or forests were cut down for materials. The plant is also believed to have been used as a folk medicine well into prehistory, especially in China. The first written record of its use as a medicine comes from 10th century Arabic texts, where writers refer to it as a kind of endive called Taraxacum, which means bitter herb, and from which the scientific name Taraxacum is thought by some to have been derived. Others suggest it came from the Greek taraxos, meaning disorder, and akos, meaning remedy. In the 13th century, dandelions were being used as a medicine by the Welsh, a continent away from Arabia or China. The common name dandelion is a corruption of the French dent de lion, from the Latin dans leonis, or tooth of the lion. Many other languages also call it a lion's tooth. It isn't clear why this name became popular, but historians have suggested that the serrated leaves resemble teeth, or that the familiar yellow flower looks like a lion's mane. Or, as one clever 15th century surgeon said, the name came from the way that the plant was effective as a lion's tooth in combating certain diseases. Medicinally, the plant has been used for a wide variety of purposes. It's been used as a diuretic, as a digestion aid, as anti-inflammatory, and as medicine to treat kidney and liver disease. The white latex that comes from the hollow stem has been used as a folk remedy for warts. The plant is remarkably nutritious, high in vitamins A, C, and K, and also potassium, iron, and zinc. It's used by Normans, Anglo-Saxon tribes in medieval Europe to prevent or treat scurvy. It was mentioned in Chinese herbals as early as the 7th century. Its recognized medicinal benefits have been enshrined in its scientific name. The term officinal, referring to apothecaries, was reserved only for herbs and plants that had a long history of being therapeutic. These are more than folk remedies. Modern studies have identified viable medicinal properties of the plant, including that the flower has anti-inflammatory benefits. By the Middle Ages, the plant was known and used by many cultures in Africa and Eurasia. European peasants included it frequently in their gardens and used it to make dandelion wine, salads, and tea. It's also often included in the ubiquitous herb gardens of monasteries and lords. A book describing medicinal properties of herbs by Elizabeth Blackwell in the mid-18th century mentioned dandelions were much eaten as a salad in the spring. While there are several species of dandelion native to North America, it wasn't until Europeans arrived that T. officinale reached American shores. The plant may have been bought deliberately by the Puritans as a food or medicinal crop on the Mayflower in 1620. Dandelions traveled almost everywhere humans did, crossing oceans with the Vikings, to Greenland, with the French and Spanish, to Canada and South America, and even to Australia. The seeds also traveled by accident, along with shipments of other European grasses and cultivars. Once in place, the aggressive plant has become naturalized across the world. While not usually considered invasive, across most of the world, T. officinale is an introduced species, and it followed humans west across the North American continent when enterprising homesteaders disturbed land for crops and homes. The plant spread quickly wherever its seeds landed, and like early humans and European peasants, Native Americans quickly recognized the plant's uses. The Ojibwa and Iroquois peoples of the Northeast use it for a variety of purposes, including as a fever reducer and anti-inflammatory, and the Aleut, Shoshone, Cherokee, Paiute, Apache, and Kiowa peoples were all known to be familiar with the plant as a medicine or food. By the 20th century, the dandelion was well known throughout most of the world, in every continent except Antarctica. T. officinale is by far the most widespread and is possibly the most recognizable plant on the planet. So why are dandelions now reviled as a noxious weed? Their fall from human grace was tied to the rise of the front lawn. Historians trace the beginning of lawn culture to 17th century England. It was then that the well-trimmed flat carpet of grass began to be displayed as a performance of wealth, as only the rich could afford for their land to be unproductive. In the late 18th century, the growing availability of grass seed in the U.S. allowed American elites to make their own lawns. Thomas Jefferson was among the first to see the new European fashion and tried to emulate it at Monticello. By the 20th century, lawns had become a part of the cultural consciousness of the American dream. In The Great Gatsby, Nick Carraway narrates that, "We both looked at the grass. There's a sharp line where my ragged lawn ended and the darker, well-kept expanse of his began." Before the Civil War, lawns were still uncommon, but the growing production of lawn care magazines helped to spread the idea in the post-war years. Industrialization and the growth of the middle class is what ultimately gave rise to the ubiquitous front lawns of today. After World War II, the government helped to finance low-cost mortgages, and builders often included lawns in these blue-collar and suburban homes to mimic upper-class lifestyles. As the lawn became ubiquitous, the dandelion changed from a sometimes useful but common plant into a menace, ruining the uniformity of lawns from coast to coast. In 1944, the weed killer known as 2,4-D was discovered, almost simultaneously by several different groups in the U.S. and United Kingdom, working under wartime secrecy laws, making it unclear who discovered it first. In 1945, the American Chemical Paint Company introduced Weedon, which killed broadleaf plants but not grasses. The weed killer saved millions from agriculture, who could now clear the fields of some weeds with much less work. The things that made dandelions desirable soon became problems. Dandelions spread widely and easily, especially in disturbed or shallowly rooted spaces, such as lawns. The taproot grows so thick and deep that the Chinese called it an earth nail. The taproot can grow up to 15 feet deep in ideal conditions. Other plants and medications made the mild dandelion mostly obsolete, and now it remains mostly in the places that people just don't want it. But even today, it isn't universally despised. During World War II, the Empire of Japan controlled most of the world's rubber production. One possible solution appeared in the Kazakh dandelion, which was cultivated in the United States, Europe, and the Soviet Union as an emergency supply of rubber. To some success, though never in large quantities. Today, unstable rubber prices, damaging fungus, and worries about growth have led to efforts to economize the Kazakh dandelion as a source of rubber, and to some, the future looks promising. Mind you, I'm not suggesting that you eat your front yard. I'm the history guy, not a chef or a dietitian, but if you want to try dandelions, scientists remind you, don't eat them out of your yard if you've been using pesticides or fertilizers, and be careful of dandelions that grow on the side of roads, because those also can collect pollution. If you want to try the dandelion, make sure that you wash them well. Some people might have food allergies, so you might try a little bit at a time. And while the entire plant is edible, you might want to avoid the stems, which exude a waxy substance which can cause nausea for some people. The history of dandelions is deeply intertwined with humans. Like so many other animals and plants, they provided food and medicine for generations of ancient humans and spread into specifically human-created biomes. Today, many people's relationship to the plant is one of antagonism, but the naturalized plant is a testament to the ways that humans have changed the ecology of the planet, sometimes in unexpected ways. It also illustrates changing historical attitudes that deeply impact our modern understandings of social realities. It is a supreme irony that we now wage war against a plant that we once brought with us as a staple food and as a reminder of home. And there are some people who want to rehabilitate the reputation of the dandelion and remind us of the day that it was used as food. There are people who even celebrate the dandelion. This year, the town of Vineland, New Jersey will have its 44th annual Dandelion Festival, celebrating the town's agrarian history. And in Japan, there's a Dandelion Appreciation Society, which is breeding dandelions in multiple colors, just for its beauty. So, maybe in the future the reputation will change, we'll go back to eating dandelions, or maybe they will remain just as weeds. And as to the war, I can tell you that my experience in my life suggests that dandelions might well outlive humanity. But in any case, they will always be a part of human history. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The History Guy, short snippets of forgotten history between 10 and 15 minutes long. And if you did enjoy, please go ahead and click that thumbs up button. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions for future episodes, please write those in the comment section. I will be happy to personally respond. Be sure to follow The History Guy on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and check out our merchandise on teespring.com. And if you'd like more episodes on forgotten history, all you need to do is subscribe.